One of the last crusades to be called took place in Italy in 1481, in the besieged city of Otranto. In the course of wresting the city back from Ottoman control, Diego di Cavaniglia, per condottiero, and the Count of Montella was struck in the knee by an arrow in battle outside the city walls. He died several days later from infection, and his body was returned to his home county of Montella, where he was promptly interred in garments he had worn in life. A little over 500 years later, his crypt was opened, and the garments were found shockingly mostly intact. Our understanding of fashion history would be forever changed. And now, I will attempt to recreate both of those garments, his farsetto and his giornea. First up, the giornea. Once more, unto the breach, dear viewer. Good evening, everyone, from Firenze, Florence, Italy. I am in my 17th century palazzo, which we have rented for the week, and I would like to make some new garments in 4 days. So another crazy creative Contessa project. See this garment? This is a Giornea in the sort of 1470s to 1490s style. And it is an unstructured Giornea, which means that no pleats or anything have been built into it. And this was an attempt at a reconstruction of the Giornea of Diego di Cavaniglia, which dates to 1481 when the Porconde and Condottiero died. This was a test piece, let me be honest. This was a complete test piece. It was made using a completely synthetic brocade, or damask, which while in a perfectly authentic period pattern is hot as hell for my poor condottiero, especially when dancing, and it's lined in linen, which is a questionable lining choice, at least for lining that is visible. Interlining, probably realistic. Lining, probably not so much. So many things are going to change about this. For one, it's not really full enough, in my opinion. It doesn't have big, happy, full pleats. So as you see when it just hangs straight, you only get a couple of natural pleats. And we really want natural pleats to form all the way through. And I went and looked back at Diego's original Giornea, and it is actually cut with flare on both the front center seam and the side seam, with the grain running down the center of the curved garment, and that I suspect is going to give me a lot more happy pleating here. This isn't bad when it hangs on its own. In fact, it looks a bit, when it's unstructured and hanging on its own, it looks a lot like Giuliano de Medici's garment, but I really want something a little more structured and a little more full this time. Going back to the original of Diego di Cavaniglia's is the winner for me. Also, we're going to build in some features that I failed to notice the last time I was staring at Diego di Cavaniglia's garment. Now, as you'll notice, there are no indents. This is the front, right? It's just straight line, but Diego's has this really nifty feature that makes the whole garment make sense. One of the problems we noticed when my condottiero is wearing this and moving about and dancing, as one does when one is with La Contessa, his belt starts sliding down, and then he gets this pouchy look at the top, and it's just not very neat and tidy. We keep having to scooch the belt up and scooch the belt up and scooch the belt up. Well, Diego's lovely Giornea has a divot in the side, which we suspect is for a belt. It's basically a belt rest, and that makes so much sense. So I'm going to be building a belt rest into this, and it's only in the front and not in the back, which would indicate the way that often the back was left out for a maximum flare. And literally in one of the dance manuals of this era, the dance master talks about how you're supposed to grab the edges of the back of your garment, and when you turn around, make it flare out most alluringly and dramatically. Cheeky self-promotion time. If you are enjoying this video, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe and the notification bell if you want to know when I launch new things. And if you want to do more to support my work, then consider the super thanks button on YouTube, or maybe becoming a patron on Patreon, which comes with a whole host of perks and extras like access to premium tutorials, multiple hour ones in fact, and discounts on classes. And now back to your regularly scheduled Contessa. Other changes we're going to be making in line with Diego's. The front of his has a round neckline, and the back of his also has a round neckline, whereas on the neckline of mine, I gave it a V, but his is round in front and back, no doubt to accommodate that rounded collar, inset collar between the shoulder bones, that fashionable in Northern Italy and in France in this period. So I'm going to be rounding out the back neckline more, and bringing up the neckline in the front, because actually this sits too low on him. It should come all the way up to the collarbones where the actual collar starts, and this sits too low and it irritates me. So some other features of Diego di Cavaniglia's Giornea: while the pleats are not sewn in any way, shape, or form, there are traces of wool batting on the inside of just the pleats, the channels, which would help create that perfectly rounded look. And there's also a tape that has survived that is no doubt it's made of linen, and it's 1 centimeter wide, which would help the pleats stay in place without giving it a rigid, immovable look. Okay, well, as we go along, I'll be referencing Diego's fine garment along the way. Let's jump in to the repatterning process and doing this as quickly as possible. Right.
Oh, I scared the fish.